Hello and welcome to part 2 of Hand Dryers Revisited. This is the show where I look back at my original run of hand dryer videos from many years back and see how many of those hand dryers are still there, how many have been replaced, how many can be revisited, etc, etc. In the last video we looked at my original hand dryers part 1 and part 2 videos and revisited all of those. In this video, we're going to be doing the same for my original parts 3 and 4. Before we get into that though, there are a couple of bits of housekeeping from the last video that we need to catch up on. First of all is the Mint Cafe in Lyle Bay, which was from Hand Dryers Part 1. In the last video, I showed that the Supreme BA101 that was there was broken, out of service. Well, since I released that video, I've been back. The hand dryer has now been removed, and rather sadly, they've decided not to have another hand dryer, and instead they've just installed one of those rotating towel dispenser things. So a little bit disappointed about that. And the other little bit of housekeeping is Johnsonville Shopping Centre. So in the last video, we looked at how the original Ardrich A260Ms that were there had been replaced with newer Ardrich A260Ms. Well, I kid you not, within weeks of me releasing my video, both of those Ardriches broke within a couple of weeks of each other, and those have now had to be replaced. Now, interestingly, they've only opted to replace one hand dryer, and the other one has just been removed completely. So they've only got one hand dryer now, not two, and the replacement is a Supreme BA101. I've got a little update here on Johnsonville Mall. The two Ardriches that were here both broke a couple of months ago. We can see the left hand dryer has been completely removed, and they're not even having a hand dryer here anymore, and we only have the one now. And they've put a new BA101 in. Probably the most boring thing they could have installed, but oh well. Anyhow, let's move on and start on this episode's list. I have a number of hand dryers to go over from my original hand dryers part 3 and part 4, and we'll get right into it. Now, the first one was an old, well, not old, but it was an Ander hand dryer, and unfortunately, I have no clue where I filmed that, so immediately, first one on the list, no revisit there, because I literally have got no clue where I filmed that, so I can't go back to find it if the place is even still there. Next one on the list though is a bit more promising. This is the Exoloo at Marine Gardens in Raumati Beach. This is where I originally filmed a second generation JVD Master hand dryer, also sometimes known over here as the Supreme Master Air, and that is a fairly common hand dryer that you find in quite a lot of Exoloo toilets around the place. Since the original video though, that has been replaced and they've now got a Supreme BA101 in there. Kapiti Coast District Council tends to go for BA101, so not really a surprise. Okay, so this Exoloo once had a JVD Master, but now it's a Supreme BA101. A lot of the Exoloo... Shut up! A lot of the Exoloo toilets originally had JVD Masters in them. This has obviously been replaced by the council now with a BA101. We can see there, this one has a serial number. So, where are we? 2019. So this is from April 2019. And look at the bloody state of it. The vandals have had a really good go at this one. All the graffiti that's been rubbed off, the logo's been removed. There's been paint and goodness knows what in here. And guess what? Oh! Okay, for a second there I thought it wasn't working, but it actually is. Running a little on the hot side as well. But there we go. Okay, now the next two hand dryers from my original part 3 were both ones that I filmed whilst on holiday in Taupo, in a completely different part of the country. So absolutely no way I'm going to be revisiting there for these for this video. However, while I can still provide an update, because the first one on the list was an Exeloo toilet in the centre of Taupo, which had a really awful old Mirage hand dryer. And as it turns out, that Exeloo block has actually been demolished since my video there, and there's no replacement for it. It's just gone. It's not there anymore. So that's that one crossed off the list. The other one from Taupo was a jet hand dryer that I filmed at a set of public toilets, again in the centre of Taupo. Now, I don't have the ability right now to get up to Taupo to revisit that. However, I do know somebody who is based up in Taupo, and that is, of course, NZ Hand Dryers. Now, NZ Hand Dryers is able has filmed the hand dryers there more recently, because all of the hand dryers in that toilet block have been replaced, and they now have World Dryer VMAX V2s supplied by Supreme. There's a couple of images of a couple of those hand dryers here that NZ Hand Dryers has supplied to me, and if you visit NZ Hand Dryers' channel, you will be able to find videos of those dryers. Okay, the next one on the list is Exeloo Paraparaumu Beach. Now this one is interesting because there's actually a couple of updates here. So this is where I originally filmed some old DuraCleanse, sensor basins. So this was basically, you have an integrated sink basin unit that's got soap dispenser, a tap and a hand dryer all built in. This is one of the older model sensor basins that they had up there. Now, the original toilet block here, which was made up of 5 units, 2 were just changing rooms and then 3 toilets. They later did some renovations to this toilet block, and what they did is they got rid of the sensor basins and put conventional Supreme BA101 hand dryers in the 2 smaller units. In the larger disabled unit, they did something a little bit different, as you will see in the clip. Okay, so the old Paraparaumu Beach Exeloos. These are actually due to be demolished soon and replaced with a new block. Those 2 are actually changing rooms, so they don't actually have toilets in them. Now these 2 and that one down there are actual toilets. Now, interestingly, these used to have in them, the old DuraCleanse wash-dry units in them. They've completely removed all of that and just put in a standard sink and hand dryer, and they've done that in this unit and the one next door. Just wait for the tap to stop. What's slightly more interesting though is what they've done. Yep, done the same in this one as well. But this is slightly more interesting because in here, where's the hand dryer? Well, this one, which is actually the disabled unit, so I need both hands for this door because it's a bit buggered. This one, they've actually got the original hand dryer that was built in to the sensor basin that was right here originally, and it's in there. I think that's actually still the Supreme BA101 motor in that. Interestingly, there used to be a metal grate over this, and then it didn't work. But now the hand dryer does work, but the metal grate has been removed, which does make me wonder if they've put a new motor in it. God knows how, because how the hell would you open this up? This one unfortunately doesn't work too well for two reasons. Firstly, the dryer's there, but the sensor's all the way over here. So you activate the dryer, move your hand under here, sensor doesn't detect you anymore. Secondly, the motor is like up here. So it's, whereas on an actual BA101, the motor's like right where the air comes out. So it's less powerful as well because the motor's further away. But like I say, this whole block is due to be demolished later this year and being replaced with a brand new block. So yeah, later this year there'll be something totally different here. Now, since I filmed that clip at the beginning of this year, that whole block of Exelu's has been completely demolished and replaced with a brand new one. The new block is much bigger. It's got 10 units in it, and all of the units are fitted with the newer style Duracleanse sensor basins that have a built-in high-speed hand dryer. So let's take a look at that. So we're back at McLean Park. The old Exelu block has been completely demolished and replaced with this brand new one. Now, the original block had just 3 toilets and 2 changing rooms. This one has 12 toilets with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this side, 5 small and a big one here, and then there's another 4 big units on the other side. These new ones are fitted with sensor basins. I was hoping for individual dryers, but there is some good news. Oh, somebody's trying to call his dog by the looks of it. But what they have done is they've actually modified the design of this a little bit. See, the problem I always had with these sensor basins was that the hand dryers, whilst powerful, wouldn't stay on. And that was down to how they mounted them with this grate in here blocking the sensor. But as you can see, they have actually modified the design and put a bigger hole here so that the sensor isn't blocked, which means that these ones, the dryers, will actually stay on correctly. Although this one's clearly got a fault because the water's not coming out. Okay, maybe this one's not the best example because the water's not working in this one, so this one's clearly got a fault. Let's try another one. Let's go over to this one. This is the one I used earlier, so I know this one works properly. The only downside is that the water spills onto the floor. It is probably also working slightly less well because I'm only using one hand, because I'm holding the phone with the other. When you use one two-handed with both hands under there, it does work a little bit better. But not too bad overall, not as bad as I thought it was going to be considering its sensor basins. But that is what we now have at McLean Park. Okay, the next one on my list was an old Vortis automatic hand dryer. Now, this was filmed at Te Papa Museum. However, I actually filmed this. I remember, because I actually remember exactly when I filmed it. It was filmed inside the exhibition hall at Te Papa, where the paid exhibitions are. And I was not willing to pay to go in there just to revisit a Vortis that in all probability is probably still there because it's Te Papa and they don't replace their hand dryers very often. So this one is a no-go. But moving on to the next one on the list, and we are at the Pataka Centre in Porirua. This is where I filmed the old JD McDonald Applause hand dryers. Now the toilets at Pataka have been completely refurbished since I shot that. Everything was completely ripped out and rebuilt. The main men's toilets there now have a Dyson Airblade, a DB Airblade in white, whilst the disabled unit that is there now has a Dyson Airblade V. So let's take a look at both of those. Okay, so we're revisiting Pataka, where I originally filmed the JD McDonald Applauses. As you can see, it's been completely refurbished in here since then, and we now have a Dyson Airblade DB. If we come down here, so where we used to have two JD McDonald Applauses, now just a single Dyson DB. Now if we come down here to where the disabled unit is, we can see that the disabled unit actually has a Dyson V in it. Nice. Okay, so that was all of the hand dryers from my original hand dryers part 3. So now we move on to hand dryers part 4. Now, interestingly enough, the first one that was on that list was actually Paraparaumu Beach again. I didn't realise this at the time of making those videos, but I'd accidentally featured the same video clip in both parts. Must have been a mistake on my part. So we've already covered that, so we'll move on. The next one is Roadhouse in Lower Hutt. Now this one is the reason why this video has taken so long to put out, because this is where I filmed the Supreme BA202 hand dryer, and I knew I'd filmed it at some bar or restaurant somewhere, but I could not remember for the life of me where it was. And I've spent ages trawling around parts of Wellington trying to find it, because I knew it was definitely in Wellington somewhere. I was just slightly wrong about which part of Wellington. I thought it was in the city. It's not. It's actually in Lower Hutt, but I've managed to find it. And even better news is that the Supreme BA202, which is a pretty rare old hand dryer, is actually still there, and it still works. So let's take a look. This is a really cramped space. Oh my god, that's hot. That's not too bad. I know it's not very good, but these things are really rare, so... Is that metal or plastic? I think it's metal, I'm not sure. Now, interestingly enough, some of you may have also recognised that this Roadhouse place was also featured in another video I did from my hand dryer Versus series, because there were also two other toilets at Roadhouse, one with a Vortis and one with a Supreme BA101. Well, the Vortis is no longer there. That particular toilet unit has been completely ripped out and is now just used as a storage cupboard. The Supreme BA101, which is in the disabled unit, is still there, but it doesn't work. So we can cross those two off of the list pretty easily. Probably not surprising given the absolute state this is in. The BA101 does not work. And they're probably not going to replace it either. Next up on my list is the Whitby Co-op. Now, for my UK viewers, I don't mean Co-op as in the supermarkets. No. The Whitby Co-op is a bar and restaurant in Whitby. And this is where I filmed a Dyson Airblade Mark II. It's like an early version of the Airblade DB. It was the very first Mark II Airblade I found, actually. It was installed in 2013, and it is still there. So let's take a look. We are back at Whitby Co-op, and the Dyson Airblade Mark II, the first one I ever filmed in fact, is still here after 11 or 12 years. Still working perfectly. In fact, I've seen newer ones than this in worse condition. This has actually lasted very well. Okay, next up on my list is Mitre 10 Mega in Port-Royal, which is a big hardware store. Now, this is where I originally filmed a Zinda GSQ-80, a hands-in hand dryer supplied by Initial. Now, this hand dryer has been replaced since I filmed that. They've now got a Mitsubishi Jet Towel Slim supplied by Canon Hygiene. Now, in my original videos, I did not feature the hand dryer and the disabled unit, which was a completely different hand dryer. It was a World Dryer Air Force, also supplied by Initial. That has been replaced as well, and they've now got an Ardrich A256P Econodry in there. Okay, so back at Mitre 10 Port-Royal. Also, there used to be an Initial branded Zinda here. This was replaced a few years ago now with a Canon Hygiene branded Mitsubishi Jet Towel Slim. Very nice. I never actually showed the disabled unit in my original video, but there was originally a World Dryer Air Force in here, and then about the same time they changed the men's dryer, they also changed the disabled, and unfortunately they went from a bit of a downgrade, going from a high power hand dryer like an Air Force to a fairly standard Ardrich A256P Econodry. But we'll show it off anyway whilst we're here. Yeah, I much prefer the Air Force. Next up is the Lambton Square Food Court, which is in central Wellington. This is where I originally filmed my first World Dryer VMAX, the original version of the VMAX. Those have both subsequently been replaced now, and there's now a pair of Dyson Airblade DBs in there. And next on the list, and the last one that we're actually going to showcase today, is the Old Bank Arcade in central Wellington. This is where I originally filmed the JD McDonald Auto Beam, the old version. There are actually two sets of toilets here. One had two auto beams, the other one had an auto beam and a BA101. Both of those sets of toilets had the old hand dryers removed and replaced with a singular hand dryer in the form of a Dyson Airblade V. So let's take a look at the new Dyson that replaced the two JD McDonalds I filmed. So there used to be two hand dryers here, now it's only the one. Okay, now that's pretty much all of the hand dryers that we are going to revisit today. There was one more hand dryer that I featured in Hand Dryers Part 4, which is an old Mitsubishi hand dryer. Unfortunately, I don't know where I filmed that one either. Not a clue. Back when I used to make videos in, 2013, whenever it was, my record keeping wasn't as good then as it is now, and I just didn't keep records of where I filmed everything like I do these days. So, unfortunately, that one is another miss. But anyhow, I hope you have enjoyed Hand Dryers Revisited Episode 2. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.